Welcome to Grounded Reality. We're back again for another episode. Today we're exploring a little bit more about kind of key definitions that we're kind of seeing within the industry and within our kind of sector.
Bit of terminology breakdown more than anything.
Yeah, because we feel delving into these key little points will just help you all understand a little bit more about how we do it, what we do, and
ultimately prepare you for the future where everything is going to be this sort of terminology. Ultimately,
yeah.
So
these are going to be more commonly seen.
Very true.
Every day. Yeah, seen, heard,
Discussed.
suggested.
Yeah. Anyway,
delve in.
Right. First and foremost, the one thing that we're all here for, the metaverse. So, if you were to Google the metaverse as for the definition, it basically comes up with a virtual reality space in which a user can interact with a computer-generated environment and other users. To be fair, as a definition, you'd say that's quite...
Sounds like a game.
Sounds like it. Pretty much, yeah. So it's almost like we're all in games, pretty much, and
So,
top and bottom of it.
James, obviously, you've been dealing with a lot of metaverse-related questions recently. What are we seeing from the metaverse side of things now? I know you've got lots of words to say about metaverse.
So in collaboration with one of our major clients in the fashion industry, where there's a hell of a lot of metaverse development going on, the review after participating in a major fashion event on a metaverse platform was that it simply just isn't there yet. There's too many issues with the companies that are essentially trying to run the platforms that currently exist. And it's not up to the visual standard that major fashion labels want, essentially. So I'm not going to name drop them, but they're pretty big. Major high street brands.
Yeah.
In response to what you just said about, obviously, the industry's not in the position to be using metaverse platforms at the moment for major clients.
Or is it more the metaverse is in a position to support those?
Yeah.
Kind of flipping it on its head.
Yeah.
Because of the quality, obviously, with basically they've just able to produce these prototype, handbags or clothes very easily now with technology being the way it is. When you move on to another form of platform and it's not up to that standard, then from a business perspective, you'd look at it and
they
go,
basically
why am I going to this when it looks
they want
worse than what I've
high
already
end
got?
game, but they're getting phone game.
Well, yeah, they're getting
quality.
phone game stuff, aren't they?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a very good way of describing it.
It's the bottleneck of hardware and the bottleneck of talent. So.
And also internet speeds and...
Yeah.
To be fair, though, that's coming, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is how they see it, is that it's just not there yet. Not that it will never be there and it will die.
It's just early days.
It's not there yet. They want to get involved to learn about it.
We're only a year in.
Yeah.
No, we're more than a year in.
No, but from mainstream adoption of the word metaverse, we're only really a year in.
Yeah, okay. So it's entered popular culture.
Or public knowledge.
To a degree of popular culture, do you know what I mean?
Well, it was on BBC News and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
so
I
it's
suppose.
kind of
I suppose.
And other good news services.
Yeah, other news services are available.
But as British people,
as British people, the BBC.
We rep the BBC.
We pay for the BBC, so sorry, I can name drop it.
Yeah, literally. Other news services, available.
Standard shit.
NBC.
Yeah.
ABC. Hey, Disney.
Bloody going for it. Another term that we quite frequently use and what we've specialised in for quite a while is photogrammetry. Obviously, with photogrammetry, again, if you were to search it and look on Google exactly what just Google says, it says photogrammetry is the art and science of extracting 3D information from a 2D photograph. The process involves taking overlapping photographs of the object structure or space and converting it into a 3D digital model using software. To be fair, that is a slightly adapted version that I did the other day, but it's pretty much the same premise
Yes.
as to what's described on Google. So, would you think that is a relatively good description?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So,
And
we can
just-
talk about photogrammetry
just
anyway.
to delve into how we use it, it's obviously
Our main scanning technique.
our main scanning technique of bringing the kind of realistic aspect of the physical world into the digital through photogrammetry to utilize within kind of Web3 applications, any metaverse scenarios, but at the moment obviously it's applying that to Web2 hosted viewers.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Essentially.
and just to kind of barrel that on into what is Web3.
I was going to say Web3. That
Good
is a
segue,
beautiful
good
segue, that. Nearly as good as Linus Tech Tips with those segues. Jesus. With
So-
Web3 then, so would we best chat about Web2 first, maybe?
Yeah, just to kind of delve into a little bit about where Web 2 was and obviously where it's kind of moving into at the moment.
Yeah.
So Web 2 kind of, at its definition, is user-generated content. So what it kind of started off with was social media platforms kind of giving the user access to creating their own content and publishing it to a wider audience.
Yeah.
Um,
Getting more users involved,
Yeah.
basically.
handing it to the people.
Give it to the people. Sound like Rage Against the Machine there or something like that.
Yeah, which is why I'm curious about how they've explained the metaverse previously, because it's almost like we've got to the fringes of Web 3 with Web 2.0, because people are now uploading their 3D assets and content, essentially. And obviously that is now bleeding into Web 3 as you sort of go and connect all that stuff with, the blockchain and whatnot in that space. So I'd say we're sort of in between. We're on the last update.
on
We're
the
like
threshold.
2.9, and there's like
Yeah.
a big update 3.0 coming.
That's it.
Basically.
Well,
yeah.
moving on into Web3. So Web3 is more developing machine-based learning and kind of getting an experience that is more tailored to an individual. So kind of like we've seen at the moment with cookies and stuff, getting basically more data, and it's more of a data-driven experience so that you are more tailored whilst you're on there, if you know what I mean. So the experience you're getting is more tailored to your kind of things you want to actually see, and obviously just making it more connected for everybody as well.
But also in a slightly more decentralized way.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, I mean, when you say cookies, it's like cookies have been around for a while,
Yeah.
and it's also just had a massive pushback from major governments,
And Apple.
and
because of privacy and the fact. Well, cookies in
something
their current,
as big as a government. Yeah.
Cookies in their current state aren't really
I mean, they're dying, so
acceptable because they're basically trackers, aren't they?
I think so. Yeah.
ultimately.
So to back up what you just said, to bypass the issues of privacy is the ability to have things stored on the blockchain, and obviously various different things that you can store in that sense. From essentially passport to personal details to credit cards, all the way through to 3D assets and pictures that are all associated with your tag on the blockchain. So that's what enables it. It's the freedom of information with privacy.
Ungoverned by a centralized body.
Ha! Yeah, sure.
Question.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But going on to another term, then obviously you mentioned blockchain, and kind of blockchain is more the way of authenticating somebody's ownership of a digital asset.
Yeah, it's
and
probably worth
kind of-
Matty rattling through that because he gets. that
Yeah,
stuff
I was going to
well.
say. So Matty probably has a bit more knowledge on this sector. It's all
Kinda
about
that
authentication, innit?
Yeah, it's authentication. It's decentralization. It's using servers and multiple servers to validate information which is passed between everywhere. So being able to kind of decentralize information in a way that no one can truly control it, because everyone has a stake within that.
Yeah, so in order to access the information, you have to relay it across other servers. Yeah,
A
essentially.
little
Yeah.
bit like Pirate Bay.
Pirate Bay, old school.
and well, I mean, AWS. I don't know enough about AWS, but probably AWS operates in a similar function where they can offload your sort of server onto another server, so that you can.
You've got like redundancy
You've got that
as well.
backup function.
And that is all validated via a blockchain key, where it is just a key of code, which is your key of code that can be passed around, and
Yeah.
the information can be sent. Or a Bitcoin can be sent from one key to another key, and validated via a
The transaction.
validator.
yeah.
But then obviously that's one of the reasons why there's been a lot of
miner,
backlash.
which is another.
Well,
buzzword.
I was actually going to move on to more why there was a bit of backlash regarding crypto and the eco side of it all.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the fact that you're having to power all these servers around the world that are validating all these quite complicated algorithms,
Decoding
them,
doing the sums,
processing them, which is why when you see a mining computer, they're just tons and tons of GPUs and CPUs, just everything that you can. They've got to be really powerful computers to do it. So they sap a lot of power, obviously. And at the moment, we need to be using more reusable energy sources, but we're currently not.
Yeah,
so,
so
that's
that
the
kinda
big issue.
Segues us into what is a miner. A miner
Yeah.
is usually the companies at the moment, or you can be an individual who is hosting mining software on a GPU powered computer to validate the code. A lot of them are on eco. It's the Russian and the Chinese mining companies that aren't very eco.
Right, okay.
There's some really good ones in like Iceland, which are all geothermal powered, and then obviously
Well, Iceland has that
Icelandic
handy thing of
cool-
having a load
yeah.
of volcanoes.
but there's some massive farms out there which
Yeah.
are validating.
Well, it's temperature based, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously. So you've got to keep a cool environment and. Well,
Luckily they have a
geographically,
cool environment, and basically they're just there to validate, and obviously the validation, the user of who is sending the information pays a gas fee to the validator, the miner, to then say, I would like to make this payment. They validate it, and that payment is made.
So it's
And that
basically
is
like
the gas fee.
That is the gas fee.
In normal terms, it's a transaction fee. Like if you were to buy something.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
why
kind of
it's
like
called
a
gas
barrel.
is beyond
There
me.
is-
It's like
Well, I
there
would
is
assume because
on
it's
platforms.
like driving,
On
transporting it from one
on
to another.
platforms, there is a transaction
you're
fee.
like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
On platforms, there's a transaction fee. There's then the gas fee. The gas fee is more like your PayPal fee. The
Yeah.
PayPal takes a cut.
Right, so they just take a cut for the transaction.
They
But
take
then
a
that
cut
isn't that a
for the
It's
transaction?
completely
miner.
dependent. It's completely dependent
The
on the
miner
market,
then
isn't
gets
it?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's dependent on the market.
Yeah,
right?
and there is like surge prices.
Yeah.
Like with Uber.
Yeah, and if you want it done, if you want it quicker, if you're not bothered about how long it takes for it to be validated, you can pay a cheaper rate.
yeah.
Essentially,
Traditionally, Bitcoin and Ethereum are using this. Other blockchains are using other methods now. So ADA, Solana, Tezos.
the reality is, with regards to real world sort of use case of crypto and how somebody will transact with it, they're not going to go anywhere near Ethereum and Bitcoin. It will be those other coins that are used, and they'll just be the back end. It's typically what's going to be adopted by the masses, major technology companies, even governments. I mean, from the research we've done, and the recent announcements, the Bank of England, I should say, is putting a lot of research into this at the moment, and they are interested in building a central world currency, which is in collaboration with the major countries in the G7. So I know from financial meetings in the G7, that's where there's a lot of work going in. But those coins, they're not what they decide to build it on, whether or not they build one from scratch, whatever. It won't be anything like Bitcoin and Ethereum's.
Yeah.
I wouldn't actually expect the consumer to see any of the language like gas fees.
Obviously, with the way things are going with like Elon Musk with SpaceX and trying to push to Mars and all this sort of stuff. Do you reckon that the Bank of England are thinking, right, well, if we become a spacefaring civilization,
Yes.
do we have a currency that then can work between Mars and Earth?
Yes.
Not.
Yeah.
That's what.
Well,
United
considering-
Nations of
yeah.
Earth. There you go.
I mean,
Centralized world currency.
Think of how quickly things have progressed with SpaceX
yeah.
and privatization of the space race,
Sector.
almost.
I think it is a tangent with regards to the
It's kind of bringing
outer
it,
colonialization.
but then that kind of like pulls into the metaverse idea as well, because then you're able to be in the same room as somebody who's on a completely different planet.
Yes.
It's
So
not
that's-
very
it's-
cheap to travel between.
No, exactly. So if I don't know, you blooming.
Could you just commute for this meeting?
Can you commute from Mars to come and see
me in a
us?
couple of years?
Yeah,
but-
exactly. Or a few months or whatever it is to travel. But
I think
That's
it
good.
is far off. It's not that far off as
No.
much, but it is.
it's within our lifetimes, definitely.
Yeah. If somebody's going, well,
Yeah,
what's the reason for
depends
this?
how-
I can just go and catch a plane and see somebody. It's the premise of the reality is there's real use case for this when you get into that environment.
Especially until it becomes.
Yeah.
We have technology that we can travel there within a few hours, kind of thing.
And I think
Sorry,
with regards to,
Matty.
like, a currency, G7 countries are aware of this, and from what we understand, China is as well, and they have actually rolled out a digital yuan. I think I pronounced that right. It's just a matter of time until the G7 countries do. At the moment, it's still pegged to the US dollar currency trading. Not currency trading, but just general trading, which is what SWIFT is backed by, which is why there was a huge debate around the Russian-Ukrainian war, because Russia was going to get booted out of SWIFT, and I think they decided to. Did they decide to boot Russia out of SWIFT?
That was the last thing I saw.
Right, okay. Well, under that premise, it means that it's now very difficult for Russia to trade anything, which is why there was issues with them cutting off gas supplies to Poland. The point is that's a real world scenario where really you need something like a blockchain and a centralized currency.
Well, that was the major success of the Ukraine war. That they actually rolled out a crypto donation pool,
Yes, a government one.
a government crypto donation pool, which was, I mean, it's a good use case for decentralized currencies.
Yeah, it's fantastic case.
And a universal currency
And
almost.
yeah. So there's barely any fees if you're using a proof of work crypto. But yeah, those the things we've just run through are real world scenarios as to why what we're going through right now is important to start understanding, and is of benefit to understand now.
You may as well dip your toes in it now before it goes
Yeah,
mental
before
and
it
then
goes, yeah.
you don't understand what's going on. Kind of
Exactly.
thing. Yeah, absolutely. Segueing into LiDAR. No, LiDAR, right. So that's another technique of scanning. Similar, well, not similar to photogrammetry, but it does the same. You get the same output in terms of a mesh. So LiDAR is primarily a detection system which works on the principle of using radar, so like light beams, to determine how far away something is. So obviously light is emitted from the LiDAR machine. It then bounces off the object, comes back to the LiDAR, and then the sensors on the LiDAR pick up that distance, the time it's taken light to get from that point back to itself. So that's how LiDAR works.
And if you multiply each of those light bounces,
Exactly.
it means that you can figure out how something looks, right?
It can create then a 3D
Depth,
depth,
an
yeah,
understanding of depth.
and it can be sub-millimeter accurate in some cases, can't it? So
Yes.
a lot of industries use LiDAR and have been using LiDAR for a long time. Construction has been using, engineering has been using LiDAR.
Space.
Yep, space has been using LiDAR for a long time because
Just what I can see, yeah.
yeah,
The first mention of LiDAR in the industry was 1963.
I think it
Really?
was it NASA?
probably NASA.
No,
But
an
to be
aircraft
fair-
company.
Oh, that's actually a fair
Was it
point.
Boeing?
'cause- yeah, well,
Hughes.
Right.
Company.
The German.
but to be fair though, that's kind of, you could then go, right, well, let's go back to World War II when the British developed radars, because
Yeah.
that's pretty much the same premise.
No, America, California.
It looks very American, that logo.
It does
so.
look very American. But yeah, that's the premise of LiDAR. And then from that scan of the thousands of light rays that it chucks out, we'll create a 3D model, or give you a point cloud kind of data.
Yeah, so like loads of
dots.
all the points where it is detected the depth.
And just to give you some kind of real time examples of how LiDAR is used in the world today, Face ID.
On modern iPhones.
On modern
Modern
iPhones, yeah.
Face ID is LiDAR. Tesla's kind of
Tesla's actually
yeah.
Well, yeah.
photo based.
I was going to say, no, it's
LiDAR.
LiDAR based.
Does it?
Yeah, Tesla's autopilot
auto car.
I
yeah.
thought that was purely
No, it's
photo based.
All LiDAR.
uses LiDAR.
Only
I thought
LiDAR.
they were avoiding LiDAR because they knew that.
No, they bought out a massive company
Oh,
that
right.
specialised in modern LiDAR.
And the funny thing is, Tesla's not actually at the forefront of automation. It's actually Renault. They not even joking.
Go on, tell them.
Well, no. I was going to say Renault have currently got the highest classification of automated driving
Yeah, but hang
out
on,
of any
on
manufacturer.
For scale.
Legit using it. Well, they're not allowed to use it. They have to speak to the government, get permission to use it, and they're only allowed at the moment to use it on the motorway. But they've been doing that for had something that level for a long time, where they literally could just sit in the back of the car and it'll do everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
Exactly.
not just in Face ID. It is obviously part of the camera array on the backs of the new iPhones as well. Are there any Android phones that have got LiDAR that you know
I
of?
mean, if they're using Face ID, they'll have to use it.
No.
No, but is in like a scanner like the what gen
Oh,
phone have you
no,
got now? The
no,
27
but
fucking
the
I don't
way
even know.
This little bit here.
Well, yeah, the only use cases of them in phones at the moment is
It's
analyze depth perception.
Yeah, which
on
isn't
the cameras, but not the LiDAR feature, and like actual scanning feature. They
okay.
use it in depth perception for processing of the
Augmented reality and photos.
and photos.
Yeah. So
And
it's good for low light, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any of the low light cameras, and Face
Portraiture. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Which is why it works. I mean, yeah.
Well,
It
it works in
works.
low light because it is
Brilliantly.
light.
Commercially for LiDAR scanning,
Yeah.
iPhones are the only one with it at the moment.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, it's
So one that you
low
could do,
resolution
yeah.
LiDAR, but as it's like I think off the top of my head, it's 5 centimeters. Whereas as Will was discussing, you can get professional LiDAR scanners which are in the £20,000 range, or
Even
$30,000
more,
range,
yeah, they could be 40,
that are
couldn't
sub-millimeter and are used primarily in engineering and construction.
Yeah. Then they could scan up to what was the one we saw, 250 meters or something
Yeah,
like that?
250 meters. It's used
Which is
essentially for
huge.
reverse engineering, but in our industry,
Mhm.
it's used for the sake of capturing details and places, objects, and everything in between, to essentially generate that accurate mesh. And then, in the case of us, we use photogrammetry to layer on the color of a space or an object, which is accurate to
And
what
a,
it actually
a
is,
texture of like a leather or a
like leather.
wood,
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Because ultimately, it's not really replicatable in modelling situations.
No, yeah. I mean, it takes a hell of
Without
it takes
simulation,
a hell of a lot
really.
of work to get to it, which is, the ultimate goal is to get it down to the least amount of time you need to scan something in real time, basically.
Yeah.
And produce a quality output that's indistinguishable from reality.
Grounded reality.
So Sketchfab.
We were moving on to Sketchfab, weren't we? And discussing what it is and how we use it, basically.
Do you want to give us
So-
a brief history of Sketchfab?
Well, your knowledge on
A
Sketchfab.
brief history of Sketchfab.
So, Sketchfab.
Well, what is
So-
so? Start off. What is Sketchfab,
The
basically?
principle of Sketchfab is it's a company.
No shit.
You can't start with that.
Basically.
It's
So,
so it's a company
It's
that
a platform.
specializes.
It's a 3D model
Yeah.
platform
Yeah.
that where you can publish, share, and discover. Publish, share, discover, buy, and sell 3D, VR, and AR content
It's not. No, I
That-
don't know why it says that. That
that's,
doesn't make sense.
Okay,
To me.
what? Why do you disagree? What do you think?
Because
it
it's not. It's like when it says
I'm
it's
not really
just
seeing
for
it as a
VR and
marketplace.
it is a market. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
All right, fair enough.
But the thing is that they've well, it
We-
is.
we're
But they
meant to
put a
use
lot of
it.
they've put a lot of work in. They put an awful lot of work into making sure that the viewer to sell that content was a premium product, and they are they're leading in the industry basically with regards to visualization of 3D models delivered over a web link basically, or an embed, an iframe. So they don't. I don't know why it says virtual reality and augmented reality, because it's like it'd be like describing Facebook as like a social network just like to deliver photos. It's like it doesn't just it's not just for that. It's about sharing
like
just everything
it is
about
the YouTube
people.
of 3D.
It is the YouTube of 3D. Yes. Yeah. As YouTube is. Well, I don't know. Don't know if was there ever a photo sharing app before? I'm sure somebody's like
Instagram,
not before YouTube.
Not before YouTube. YouTube was
Shutterstock.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, if it existed
well,
back then, but I mean,
yeah.
I was going to say, when was MySpace and all that sort of stuff?
social network though, right? So
Yeah,
like
true.
Facebook is like the new MySpace, and that's how it was. Do you know what I mean? And,
Yeah. So yeah, how do we use Sketchfab then?
we use Sketchfab to essentially show off and create experiences with our 3D models. So whether that's a product or a historical artifact or a space or building, for example, an exterior or interior, we use the full features of Sketchfab to show off what we do directly to a customer or a viewer, so that they have full interactability with it. They can zoom in, zoom out, explore the space, move through it, get information of where they are in space, get information about product, all in 3D. And it's essentially like the first initial glimmers of what the metaverse could be like when regards to talking about 3D. Web3 is obviously underpinned by this other strand of virtual environments and virtual objects and attaching them to the blockchain. That Sketchfab is one of the things, is the technology that can sort of drive that, which is why it was probably acquired by Epic Games.
Yeah.
Because they've invested so much time and money into it and built a product that's fantastic.
Well, they've basically tried to corner the market with the most used software
Yeah.
and the Epic Games, with the amount of companies they bought up recently.
Yeah, which is due to huge funding rounds from Sony and there's another big party, but we're talking billions of pounds worth of
I
funding.
think the last time I checked, they were at like $2 billion
Yeah,
that they
to
paid
build the metaverse,
to
as they keep saying.
yeah.
Yeah,
just to buy companies up.
yeah, just to buy companies up, and that is.
I think I do
that's why
see
Sketchfab's been
Epic
bought.
being one of the big three.
Driving forces.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, kids obviously growing up now with Epic. Every time they boot Fortnite up, it'll come up with Epic Games, and then it'll come up with Fortnite. It's like when, all of the, past generations before Gen X and Gen Z and all this sort of stuff, they all grew up on Disney films and that classic Disney logo that came in. There's no real other true competitors to Sketchfab that can match the quality of it.
At the moment,
At the moment, there are different methods to deliver 3D content, but the quality of it isn't there yet. The details of which is probably not worth going over. But yeah, it's incredibly powerful.
So to truly utilize Sketchfab, and obviously through our own processes, what do the users and the users of maybe Cyro need to know about kind of going into using Sketchfab? Obviously, we need to look into optimization of models, because obviously when we capture them in our photogrammetry process, we're getting a very high density model.
Which could be in the billions of polygons, couldn't it? In some
Yeah.
situations.
So I mean, at the moment,
So there's a process, obviously.
Yeah.
So this is where we deal an awful lot with it, which is the output of models that we produce is far too of greater detail to put through Sketchfab. So that requires us to do post-processing work on the models.
Just to throw in a point, polygons is the measurement of data within a 3D model, similar to how a megapixel is the measurement of data within a photograph.
Yeah. So the more megapixel you've got in your actual camera, the higher the image will come out.
The higher quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is in the same principle of how 3D models work.
So you'd
Yeah,
think
in
of
polygons.
Yeah, you think of polygons as points of data, don't you? Kind of.
Yeah. So you
So-
can deconstruct. Yeah. I mean, you explained it. That line
Quite
you just
well,
said about
actually,
data
yeah.
then is, it works great. Yeah, basically. So with Sketchfab, to really get good optimization and efficiency and quality on mobile devices, really you have to limit it to 250,000. The models that we produce can be dependent on the size of the object in the real world, up to beyond billions of polygons. So the amount of optimization that you need to do at the moment is drastic.
But obviously, as technology picks up, we'll be able to push that further and further. But for now, it is limited to as you
with
said,
It's limited, yeah.
250,000
introduction of 5G and
Yeah.
giga internet and all this sort of stuff that we're now eventually getting,
Yeah, and
which
obviously,
the rest of the world has had for so long.
yeah. Well, yeah. But when you play a game, or you play Call of Duty, or you play, any other like realistic game, the power that it can give to you, the power that it can deliver to your screen is obviously a lot more than just loading something through a web address.
Yeah.
It's always been the case of web developers would be like, I have to compress this image down a lot in order to get it online. Whereas now we've worked up to delivering a 3D model, which is crazy. So yeah, Sketchfab is brilliant for all that sort of stuff. Yeah, and obviously, as it does mention, you can use it in virtual reality and augmented reality seamlessly. So the moment it's built in Sketchfab, you can load it up onto
Your Oculus
iPhone or your Oculus.
other headsets
your
are
Your
available.
Meta Quest.
Sorry, Meta Quest now. Oh yeah, I saw that they changed the logo on the
Yeah.
startup.
Classic.
But from a user perspective, it is so easy.
Yeah,
it is a
that's
case
simple.
of loading up a website and clicking a button.
Mm.
Yeah.
That is it, and you are then straight into it.
So the process of going from 1 billion to 250,000.
Yeah.
So what is that?
So it's mainly
That is-
it's
That is literally
retopology.
retopology.
Yeah.
And there are ways that you can let software deal with that, or you can do that in a manual fashion. Typically, the quickest way to do it is through just software automation.
But we found, haven't we, with a few projects that
Yeah, in order
if
to
you do
eke
it
out-
with the software, it actually you could do better by either redesigning and rebuilding parts of certain things
manually.
or removing parts manually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either approach it's got its own use cases, but if we were to work with the client, obviously we'd have to respond to whatever the work demanded, basically.
Yeah,
So,
pretty much, and obviously how the client feels
Yeah,
about the output.
And
ultimately.
different platforms are asking for different poly counts, and obviously the idea is that we need to get to the highest possible poly count to then come down to a relatively smaller one, depending on the platform. And obviously, as technology picks up, we've still got that original higher density model that we can kind of go back into and re-optimize for reuse 5 years, 10 years down the line.
and it
which is
just
quite
basically
exciting.
improves the quality.
yeah.
You
it's
just improve it every time. don't you?
Future-proofing the process.
Yeah.
Future-proofing the process, yeah. It's a good way
Which
to
is
put
the
it.
idea. So if you were to actually come and use our services, it's a case of you've got that saved, ready to go, and as things start progressing, you've got that.
Don't delete it.
future-proofing. Yeah, don't delete it. Just keep hold of it,
Yeah.
basically. And you've got that protection there, and it means that everything's going to get
So
nicer.
obviously we spoke about photogrammetry, how we host it, how we optimize it. Maybe should we just delve into a little bit about Blender and how we kind of utilize that within
in terms of our process.
in terms of our process?
Yeah, of course. So Blender is probably one of the biggest
Open
It's-
source.
Open
It is
source.
rapidly becoming the main CAD modelling, not modelling,
It's-
just
I was
CAD
gonna
tool.
say, I wouldn't say is it necessarily CAD. Would you class it as CAD? It's
I
more
think
of like a
it's
design. I think they class themselves as a
multi
design.
Multimedia.
design software, don't they? I
So you
think
can go
that's
into
what they say
animation,
they are.
You can go into modelling. You can go into CAD,
Yeah,
you can go
simulation
into-
and everything. To be fair,
It's
it's got quite a bit.
Well, yeah, because you can describe it as a 3D
light.
asset tool, but you can draw in 2D on it and
Yeah.
produce 2D
Light.
animation.
Yeah.
You can't do light and
No,
CAD.
No,
I mean,
exactly.
it might
It's
be worth
more of
just
a-
looking
I
up
think
quickly on Google what
I
it
swear
what
they,
actually
I
the
swear
description is.
when I looked at it, they said they classed themselves as a 3D design software company or something like
Yeah, it's
that.
curious though. Design is obviously not the same as art though, and obviously you can. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's a
Computer
tool.
graphic.
free
graphics software.
open source 3D computer graphic software
Yes.
tool
Yeah.
set
So yeah, you can create 3D assets within Blender.
used to create animated films, visual effects, art, 3D printed models, motion, interactive 3D applications, virtual
So
reality.
Yeah. So you can
Yeah.
pretty much use Blender for just about all applications for output. So if you wanted to create a model to 3D print, you've got that there ready to go. All you need to do is export the file in a different format and
But equally so,
Stick
that
it-
model can
yeah.
be used in
could be
film
used
production.
online or anything, game production,
Yeah,
anything.
it can respond in real time to music input, so it can bounce off certain frequencies in songs, for example.
Yeah.
It is crazy what it can do.
It can well again, you've got simulation, you've got all that sort of stuff. So it's
Yeah.
got fabric simulation,
Fluid
so
simulation,
fluid simulation.
smoke
Very
simulation.
powerful. It's
So
very
much-
powerful for a free
free tool. It's
Very, very,
unbelievable.
yeah. Which is, I mean,
And
on
with
a
the-
broader point,
yeah.
the most powerful thing about it is that anybody can pick it up.
Yeah.
There is no £3,000 a year barrier in subscription, which is why I do think that the pre-existing modelling software or whatever you describe it as will die, because anybody can just pick it up if they are willing to give it the time to learn.
And to be honest, with it being open source as well, there's new tools and
Anybody can build on it.
simplified methods that for designing and building within it are being added every day.
Yeah.
So it's a case of you can go on the internet, have a look at some forums, and find these incredible tools which make doing really complex jobs really simple.
Yeah.
And to be honest, if anybody touches Blender, you've got to do the donut tutorial. Otherwise, otherwise you've never done Blender. But there's so many helpful tools on YouTube, on the internet, that you can just pick it up and develop your skills fairly rapidly on
Nice.
it.
Yeah, I
So-
mean it's so accessible that schools use it now, right?
Yeah.
When we grew up in school, we would
didn't
always
even-
try and get
yeah.
on games websites and stuff like this, and they block it. All the websites would be blocked. Blender is not blocked. It means that any school computer in the world any student can go on it, download it, and build on it for free.
The capability of the computer.
Yeah, but it's in the power of the people. It is up to the person to commit the time. There is no other barrier other than obviously, of course, internet access.
Yeah, computer power for some simulation stuff.
Yeah, obviously there's certain limitations for how far you can go.
Rendering.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is, looking ahead, now that it is backed by Apple, Adobe, Microsoft, Sony, really big companies, it means that the talent that will come out of using Blender will be of a greater ratio than any other existing software, just because of its open source premise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why we use it.
And it's, to be fair, very intuitive.
Very intuitive.
As a natural software that you look at it and go, oh my god, the potential that you can use it for is unbelievable.
Pretty sexy UI as right.
It's actually quite easy as an individual who's never gone to it before
Yeah,
to pick it up relatively quickly.
exactly.
That's been Grounded Reality. They've been James, Will, Matty here talking about some of our topic points of
Say it.
talking.
Just general chin wagging.
Exploring the metaverse,
Yes,
exploring the metaverse together on Grounded Reality.
Yeah.
You can kind of find out more information about what we do via our Instagram, Cyro.uk.
.uk or is it underscore UK? Ooh.
Instagram
or
for
visit our website, Sarah.
Sarah.uk.
Yeah, what? It's simple,
We're
isn't
very,
it?
very creative.
And
us.
for
Very
more
creative
episodes,
business.
come
I
and
don't know, the
come
name's
and
pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
and for more episodes, come and have a look at Grounded Reality.
Absolutely.